Hello, this is Cami, and in this video I'm going to talk about supply chain finance, its uses, and the widely known case study of Procter and Gamble. SCF is a form of financing in which suppliers can receive early payment on their invoices. It reduces the risk of supply chain disruption as well as optimizing the working capital of both supplier and buyer. So this is how it works. First, the buyer purchases goods or services from the supplier, who then issues their invoice to the buyer with payment due within a certain time frame. Then the buyer approves the invoice for payment, of course, and the supplier requests early payment on the invoice. At that point, the intermediary bank will send payment to the supplier with a small fee deducted, of course. And at last, the buyer will pay the invoice on their due date. So, what makes the P&G case so special? First of all, we must mention that there are three types of contracts involved for the three parties. First, a commercial contract between P&G and the supplier, which specifies products and payment terms. Second, we have a service contract between P&G and the bank for payment terms. And last, we have a financing contract between the supplier and the bank. So what are the benefits that come with this strategy, one might ask? Well, there's actually many, and here are just some of them. First, the P&G extends the payment terms, hence reducing the cash conversion cycle, which means that it has a very positive impact on the company cash flows. Then the supplier would receive payment in short period at a minimum cost, fulfilling the current working capital requirement. Then the supplier can lower funding needs and hence improving liquidity and leverage, as well as the supplier cashing the invoice in at any time, which is of course more favorable than borrowing it from a bank, because of course you would have interest fees and so on. And then last but not least, the bank would also benefit from this as they would charge a service fee. P&G specifically calls this a win-win-win strategy because there are benefits involved for all the parties. In case that P&G were not to adopt this strategy, the following things would happen. So first of all, the days of receivables would increase along with the cash conversion cycle, which of course is not favorable to the company. It would also lower the cash flow, and the company of course would have to take loans from banks, increasing the leverage. So it's not convenient for a company to have high debt burdens, obviously, and that's why it would pose a debt to the company's business, hence appearing weak to their competitors. But with the SCF, the debt only presents itself on the books as a short-term liability. So what was the deciding factor that pushed P&G to adopt this particular method of doing finance, which at the time was very innovative? In 2008, of course, there was a huge recession which affected not only big companies but also individuals, and of course, P&G was among these. Back then, they conducted a research about their working capital management by comparing their financials to the ones of their competitors, and they found out that P&G was actually 30 to 55 days quicker to the payment to the suppliers above industry average. So to change this, a company mandate was issued, and which extended the contract payments terms by at least 30 days. This, of course, would negatively affect the suppliers as they would have to wait longer to receive the funds. This situation was indeed not ideal. Hence, this pushed them into a new revolutionary way to do finance. In their so-called win-win-win strategy, the costs of funds would be based on the credits that the P&G and the supplier would have with the bank, and that would actually determine what the kind of discount that the bank would then provide to them when it was moment of payout. Secondly, the supplier could choose at least 2 out of the 3 supplied banks, which were either the Citigroup, Deutsche Bank, or JP Morgan. So this accounted to many more benefits. The invoice discount is then determined by the SCF financing rate and the length on the funding period. It's calculated with the following formula. SCF invoice discount equals to LIBOR plus spread times the additional days financed by suppliers over 360. So this program started in 2013 and it first got introduced into a sample of 40 suppliers from North America. Just 2 years later, there was almost 800 suppliers that were part of it because of how successful it was. It had so much popularity because P&G understood their suppliers better and came to form more collaborative relationships with them, as well as being more communicative and being more rich in itself. So if we have a look at the financial statements of the company, we can see that in 2015, when the new system was truly gaining momentum, the account receivables decreased as well as all the inventory costs. On top of that, the days of inventory holding decreased together with the days sales outstanding. Of course, these changes were also aided by the cut cost policy put in place after the crisis in 2008, in which their main objective was to reduce the cash conversion cycle. They eventually achieved this in 2015. Well, actually, one might say overachieved, because at that point they even had a negative value for the CCC, meaning that they were able to sell their products even before paying the suppliers. Another factor indicating that this implementation was successful is the net operating working capital, which halved from 2014 until 2015, while keep in mind keeping the revenue still the same, hence showing a very good use of cash flow for operations. So the benefits brought on by this different approach were the following. First, the DSO is staying constant, meaning that the company received the payments from customers at the same time, more or less, so not a big change there. Then the DPO actually decreased. They pay suppliers later, from 45 to 75 days usually. Then the DIH decreased as well, meaning that the inventory is kept for a shorter time. And last, the CCC decreased, which was their initial objective that I mentioned earlier. But yes, meaning that the company would keep their money for a longer period of time. So, to conclude, the main takeaway of the implementation of this innovative financing system is the win-win-win strategy. The suppliers get paid faster, P&G disburses their payments at later terms, and the SCF Bank receives a service fee. So, thanks for coming. Leave a like, subscribe, and comment. And I'll see you in the next video.